here. Set up my screen. All right, so first and foremost, I'm just going to let you know that this seminar is being recorded and I will be presenting helpful information, but also advertising my packages at the very end. And you can reach out to me on acceptedtogether.com for any follow-up questions. There will also be a question and answer session at the end as well. So to begin, I'll tell you a bit about myself. So I am from Toronto, Ontario, and I completed my undergraduate degree at the University of Guelph in animal biology. I completed that in 4 years, but took an extra semester to try and get my marks up for OVC, the Ontario Veterinary College. And I'm currently in my 3rd year or phase 3 at OVC, and I was accepted on my 3rd application cycle. In my spare time, I like to play basketball and go to live music events and spend time with my pets, Phineas and Ferb, as you can see on screen there. Going into the talk today, before talking about the nitty-gritty about the application process and specific techniques I recommend, I want to let you know that throughout the 3 years that I did apply, something that I found over time to be most important is maintaining a good mindset and balance throughout it all. You're probably in your undergrad with a bunch of courses, lots of deadlines, personal life you're trying to balance on top of that, as well as thinking about applying to whether it be OVC, the Veterinary College in Guelph here, international, or somewhere else in Canada, or even the States. And with all that, you have a lot on your plate. And something that I found helped me succeed over time was trying to maintain a positive attitude, starting to prepare early, little by little, so it wasn't as overwhelming, as well as taking breaks in between all of that, as it helped with my productivity over time. And at the same time, don't forget to reflect on how far you've come. I vividly remember looking over my application with my experiences and such when applying, and it kind of was a moment that I recognized how much work I put in to get to where I was at that point. And I think that's something everyone in this chat or this call should do, as I'm sure you've put a lot of effort into where you are, and going into the application process, recognizing that will help you believe in yourself and continue to, again, be positive. All right, and please note, as I did apply from the University of Guelph and got into the vet school in Guelph, a lot of my advice will be from that point of view. With that being said, if you have questions about international school or other processes elsewhere, I will do my best to help where I can, but just keep that in mind throughout the presentation today if you are looking to apply elsewhere. So to begin, I'll talk about the application itself, the resume, if you will, when applying to veterinary school. And at OVC, when applying to the vet school in Guelph, it's called the background information form. So this would be the first step in the process, which I believe, from my experience, it was normally due at the beginning of February, but I have the link here to OVC's website just to confirm those deadlines and the process overall, as things can change quite frequently. So to begin, looking over your LinkedIn page or just reflecting on your experiences or your resume, look at your experiences and analyze what qualities can I identify from these experiences. When describing certain things that you've done, how can you expand? How can you be more specific? You want to try and stand out from other people. And the best way to do that is to be authentic with who you are and what you learned, because not every applicant won't have the exact same experience. I found throughout some processes, I was always catching myself. I was trying to phrase things in ways I thought the vet school wanted me to. And over time, I learned that you just have to truly be yourself, describe what you did and why everything was meaningful to you. And let's say you do have an experience that was a bit, not necessarily negative, but you learned more about yourself and the experience rather than not necessarily gained, because that is learning within itself. But let's say it wasn't your favorite experience. That is still something you want to run with, because learning from these negative experiences will allow you to see what you do and don't like about the profession, as well as things you learned about yourself. So just really look at the good and the bad from everything, how to be more specific, and really paint a visualization for the person reading your application of what you did. As well as extrapolating that, even if you don't include this in your application, when reflecting on your experiences and thinking about them in the interview process, you'll be able to see how can, for instance, working at an ice cream shop, how can that help me in my future career? And you may be thinking, how is working at an ice cream shop going to help me be a vet? Well, you can really be creative, and every experience you have will help you in some way, whether that expose you to customer service, problem solving, time management. Anything you learned about yourself or any skills you gained can be applied to veterinary medicine. So just keep that in mind. If you look at a job like that and think you should exclude it from your application, don't discredit yourself, because everything is a benefit. And with that being said, again, just reiterating that being as specific as possible while keeping it concise is the best way to paint a picture as an applicant, just giving a snapshot of what you've experienced and why that makes you unique. So yes, when going through your experiences, kind of give yourself the opportunity to find what is your philosophy or your beliefs going into veterinary medicine. Why do you want to be a veterinarian? Who are your mentors? What have you learned from them? Why do they inspire you? What area of veterinary medicine do you think you want to explore, or a part that you've been exposed to that you want to pursue? Why do you think you're a good candidate? Why are the schools that I'm looking at, why am I drawn to those? And what are some future goals in general that you see for yourself professionally, but also personally? These are just a few examples of questions that will allow you to reflect on yourself, as well as reflect on what kind of vet you want to be. And again, this goes back to my point about being really authentic and having a sound foundation of how you want to represent yourself throughout the process. Because it's really easy to look up buzzwords and read some scientific papers and write what you think is correct, but it often can be really obvious for someone reading your application that you're not being very honest and transparent with who you are as a candidate. Another tip I have when going into the application process, I would occasionally go over the veterinary oath, or kind of have a sticky note with these 4 points. I will strive to promote animal health and welfare, prevent and relieve animal suffering, protect the health of the public and the environment, and advance comparative medical knowledge. This is this is the oath for all veterinarians. And keeping this in the back of my mind, kind of always put the right foot forward of how I wanted to go about my application. When describing my experiences, why are certain descriptors more important than others? And why, even going into the Casper test, the ethical written test that I'll talk about later, these are just ways to kind of find your morals and how you want to represent yourself as a future veterinary professional, and how you want to uphold those standards in your career. So kind of knowing at the get-go who and what you're representing really helps with writing a successful application. Adding on top of that, there's something called CVMA, the Canadian Veterinary Medical Association. And if you go to this link at the bottom of the slide, you'll be able to look at different controversial topics in veterinary medicine and the stance that veterinary medicine usually has in certain situations, such as declawing cats or backyard breeding. Some controversial topics are presented on this website, and there's some scientific evidence and facts and perspectives from veterinarians as a whole that kind of will familiarize yourself with some difficult situations you may encounter in your future. And when reviewing some of these topics, you'll also reveal some key words and phrasing and vocabulary of the profession that, whether or not you realize, will subconsciously help you write a more successful application as well. You are educating yourself about the profession before you're even a veterinary student or a veterinarian. So being able to put yourself in that headspace and really learn about what you're getting into will allow you to, again, make yourself a more successful candidate. And you're not only studying just to get in. If you look at it that you're studying to help yourself be a vet in the future, you're already a step ahead. That's how I always saw it, and also helped me maintain the mindset, that positive mindset of seeing myself already being accepted. And it's not that you're being cocky, but you're just trying to fake until you make some confidence, because it can be a little bit intimidating sometimes. All right, so now with what we've established, we have established how we want to represent ourselves in our application, and we've written a draft. There's a bunch of places and people you can consult to try and improve it. A lot of perspectives are helpful, and I have some on the slide here. But keep in mind, at the end of the day, it is your application. So even though you will get some feedback, there may be some contradictory opinions. At the end of the day, go with your gut. This is your application. And if you make it to the interview process, you want to make sure you can defend your application and have it align with who you truly are. So again, get as much feedback as you can without being too detrimental. So now we've submitted our application. Next step is the Casper test. The Casper test is a written ethical test that you do virtually. You type out various answers when presented with ethical situations, and it allows you, under pressure in a 5-minute limit, to really show your ethical decision making. To prepare for this, I recommend helping with your typing speed. You can go on some websites and see there's a bunch of different tests and algorithms that help you improve your typing speed over time. So something I did before practicing actual Casper questions was I would actually warm up my fingers by using one of these websites. There's tons online you can look up. And I reflected on some of my own personal ethics, just listening to the news and things like that, and trying to see both sides in a very neutral way, and then making a decision of my own. So always trying to reflect to kind of make that ethical decision-making more second nature. Because the future of vet med, every day you'll encounter, I'm sure, many ethical scenarios. And again, you can get more feedback from peers as well as consultants from Accepted Together, like myself, and just continuously practice as much as you can, while of course taking some breaks. Now, let's say, hopefully, fingers crossed, you get to the interview stage. I have some advice about practicing interview questions. So again, more feedback, more self-reflection, and getting feedback from others will allow you to improve instead of instill some maybe unideal habits, not only in the way you speak, but how you present yourself with mannerisms or eye contact or anything like that. Something that a lot of people recommended that I didn't do was record yourself. So again, even a tidbit from me, even if I recommend something and it doesn't work for you, that's okay. Every applicant is different. I tried to record myself many times, but was always so distracted by the fact I was doing that I never was able to focus. So it might work for you. It didn't work for me. When you get more comfortable delivering some answers, practice with a timer so you can get a feel for how long you are speaking. Because sometimes you're going on for way too long, but there's also times where you could have really added to your answer and you thought you were talking for 5 minutes, but you were only talking for 2. So again, it's a lot of trial and error. And when practicing, especially closer to the interview itself, I would practice more frequently in my interview outfit with my interview setup and the lighting and the background, just so when it was the real day, I was able to take a lot of pressure off because it felt very familiar. And when self-reflecting during and after responses, think about what the question is asking specifically and what you can add to make yourself stand out, drawing in specific examples or even extrapolating it to how you will be able to implement that in your future career. Painting the photo for yourself and the interviewer that you are already in that professional position, again, just comes across as really confident and shows that you're emotionally mature to follow this career path. And here is an interview response structure that works for me as a nice guideline to get my ideas down, as it could be really overwhelming to compartmentalize what you want to say for some really loaded questions. So feel free to take a screenshot of this. And if you wanted more practice or anything, you can always book a session with myself or any of my colleagues on the website to kind of get more practice. And again, as I said throughout the process, make a schedule to stay organized. I'll even schedule time in to relax. I would often go on walks on my prep days closer to the interview when I took time off work, and I kind of had a routine to stay in a calm headspace, as really I see the interview process as a big mental game. And just be aware of your feelings. Don't bottle them up. Recognize if you're nervous or overwhelmed, or if you need to step away from prep. And again, you might even be excited. Don't be afraid to lean into that. Being able to finally apply and get an interview offer is really exciting because you've worked really hard to get here. All right, so to conclude here is a snapshot of my packages that I offer. So for 1 hour, it's $45. If you wanted something like mock interview prep, where you have 2 live hours that could be booked at once or separated, that's $70, and you'd get a little bit of a discount there buying 2 at once. And the same applies for the Casper test and interview prep, kind of pre-purchasing these things and scheduling them for yourself. You can, if you're going to book that many sessions anyway, might as well save some money, and then we can establish a program that works for both of us so that you can succeed in the best way possible. And again, something that's more applicable to this time of season is application editing and review. Again, it might not really start for you until the next couple months, but I am ready to help whenever you are ready to approach me. So I am excited to work with any of you if you do purchase some packages. I really valued the feedback and the growth that I had from the multiple application cycles and all the tutoring that I did. And I think that every applicant is different and needs a really specific guidance through the whole process. And it can be really difficult and overwhelming. So through what I've learned, not only as an applicant, but as someone who was consulted, I really hope to meet you and help you the best way I can as well. I like to be a bit of an application cheerleader and get you where you need to be. So with that being said, that was a pretty loaded 20 minutes of tips for the whole application process. Feel free to scan the QR code here to check out my profile. And Finny and Ferb and I say thank you for listening, and I'll be here for the next 15 minutes to address any questions people have. Okay, so first question, which aspects, research, vet shadowing, would you consider the most important to highlight during the application process? Okay, let me think about that 1 second. So if you are applying to OVC, I believe there's different categories for the types of experiences that you've had. I think there's like an animal, or when I applied, just to clarify, it was sectioned based on the type of experience. So whether that be animal care or employment, volunteering. So for something like research and vet shadowing, I feel like both of those things is something I would recommend you include, as well as you would be able to include based on the structure. So it's just a matter, if you have so many experiences that you have to choose between some, then I would just think about maybe the quantity of hours you've had and how much did you really learn from it, in case in a future interview you had to defend it or you wanted to refer to it in the personal essay part of it. Again, just play to your strengths and what you think is more unique. But I think research and the vet shadowing are both key ones I would include. Thank you, Tina, for clarifying. Okay, so for references, when I applied, there was two professional, like two vet references and one more personal, um, or two vet references and one professional. That was like, you could pick anything. For the vet ones, again, make sure you've worked at this clinic and have a good relationship with the vet. You know, if you pick the vet you saw once a month because they locum there and you want them to write your reference and they don't really know you, it might not be strong. So approach the vets you've really built a relationship with and have seen you in the clinic and ask them if they can provide you a good reference. And if they say yes, you just have to trust that they will vouch for you in their reference form. So, and for professional, someone, again, that you trust that knows you really well, that will give you a good reference, because if they don't know you and it's just a waste of a reference that will drag your application down when it otherwise could have still been really strong. Did your Casper percentile ranking improve in each cycle? Okay, good question. So I wrote Casper twice. The first time, I don't remember the percentile or if they even revealed it, but based on my confidence, I'm pretty sure, and then I got in. The second one was better. I definitely got fourth quartile for the second one because I saw the results. And how did I achieve this? Again, it depends on your strengths with the Casper test itself. It could be what word choice you use, the structure of your answers. Something I reflected on in my first cycle was that I didn't finish. So it gave you the prompt and then it would give you 3 questions to answer in 5 minutes. And often, because I was maybe too stressed, unprepared, or didn't know what to say, I sometimes wouldn't complete all 3. I maybe would leave one blank. And I don't exactly know how the scoring works, but I was in my second application where I wrote Casper, I was able to write substantially more for each response. And if I was able to time manage well and be confident and type that quickly, the quality of my answers probably improved as well. So again, it just comes down to a lot of practice and getting feedback, because if you break bad habits or implement good recommendations throughout the process, it'll be a lot more second nature on the real day, and will just be a lot easier for you to do. And if you're more confident, you're going to be more calm and have better performance. So hopefully that answers your question. If not, feel free to have a follow-up. Does it matter what field of specialty we specify that we want to get in during our personal essay? Like, choosing one specialty can decrease or increase your chances, and they might be in high demands for that specialty. I honestly don't think so. I would just be honest and say what specialty, whether that be small animal, mixed, or just large, or research, or wildlife, or exotic, whatever you truly want to do at the time of applying. Just be honest, because if you have to expand on that elsewhere in your interview, for instance, you want to be able to come across as authentic and genuine and just truly show who you are. So I wouldn't worry about demands or anything like that. Even looking at the percentage of those who are accepted, it's just natural that there's a higher percentage of small animals. So I wouldn't really worry about that kind of strategy. Good question though. What work experience did you have that you found prepared you the most for vet school or gave you the best experience? Reese asking some hard questions here. That's a good one. You know, it really is hard, because being in the animal-based experiences allowed me to be more comfortable with animal handling and knowing what is good for animal health, and even interacting with other people and what to recommend their pets and things like that. But then again, all of that, even if you have more knowledge or less knowledge than the candidate next to you, you're going to get taught all of that in vet school. So on the interview itself, of course, having experience in animal-related experiences to show you know what you're getting into, that's important. And that's going to make you feel whether or not you have that passion to pursue vet med. If you're in that veterinary clinic and you have a really good interaction with a vet or see a really cool case, like if you have that passion, you know why you want this. But with that being said, something like a hospital job where I worked with humans, or something like a retail job, things like that. Again, in vet med, it's not just working with animals, you're working with people and your coworkers and your peers and the public. So I honestly think that there is no one best experience. It's truly getting well-rounded ones, really diverse ones with different animal species, different customer service settings, and things that challenge you, like just like working in places that take you out of your comfort zone at the same time, whether or not it's vet related. That's going to allow you to personally grow. And like I said, with the ice cream shop example, you'll be able to build skills regardless that will help you sustain in this career and as a student, as well as get to where you need to be to get accepted in vet school. Hopefully that answers your question. At what point of your undergrad did you begin to start volunteering, shadowing, etc.? Okay, that's a good question. I actually started, I think the last summer of high school. So it was pretty early that I kind of, it really solidified that I wanted to go into vet med. But I know some people that only started like volunteering and things like that a year or two before they applied. So again, everyone is different. It's really easy to compare yourself to other applicants and worry or feel more comfortable, but there's a lot of factors that go into getting accepted to vet school or any professional school in general. So just follow whatever your journey is and do whatever works for you. But for me, I started just before my undergrad began. What made me choose OVC specifically? That's a good question. I'm from Toronto. I grew up in Toronto and my family's in Toronto. So is Finny and Ferb on the screen here. So just because I'm a homebody and I really like being close to my family and things like that, I wanted to choose OVC, as well as I did my undergrad in Guelph. So I was really used to that university town and had a lot of friends and community here. Also, just because I am a domestic student, it would be more financially feasible. But with that being said, I briefly considered international schools in case I didn't get into OVC. There's a lot of other great schools out there. OVC is definitely higher up on the ranking list, and it's a great school, but there's other ones out there as well. One of my best friends actually is at Ross in the Caribbean. So, and she's having a great time and learning a lot as well. So there are other options, but personally, OVC was just always at the top of my list for those reasons. Can you tell us a little bit of your experience at OVC so far? What are courses like? How hands-on is the program, etc.? Okay, that's a good question. So I can't believe I'm already in my third year. Upper year students have always said it's, what do they say? At OVC, there's long days but short years, and it's very true. So we have classes usually from 8:30 to 5:30, and it's variable every day. It alternates between classes and labs. And labs include going to the barn, working with dogs, and there's some pathology labs as well where you're looking at specimens and things like that. So there's a lot of hands-on as well as class. And there's a lot of clubs and things like that that allow you to network with other students and different people in the field, as well as have some cool experiences out that you can even gain more hands-on experience outside of the classroom. I can't think of any specifically on the top of my head, but well, there's one club actually called Global Vets that some of my friends participated in. They fundraised throughout the school year and then shared the money they all fundraised in the club to go on their respective international trips to practice surgery and different hands-on things and give back to some less fortunate communities. So there's a lot of really cool experiences like that that people have explored. So you're learning in the classroom, in labs, barns, and things like that, and then outside of that as well. And it's a lot of fun getting to know the class. There's only 120 of you. So you also make a lot of really great relationships along the way. There are some hard weeks and days and things like that, especially with pretty frequent exams. So you are getting into, like, with undergrad, it's very challenging, but then you get into OVC or any vet school, and the weight of getting in is off your shoulders, but you're still faced with a pretty challenging 4 years ahead of you. So those meaningful relationships are really important to get through some difficult times throughout the year, but it's also a lot of fun. So. If you have any more questions, we have a little bit of time left, no pressure. Something that has come to mind that I could quickly touch upon. My second application cycle, I went through the interview process and got rejected, which was very difficult. It was very, very hard to come that close and not get in. And I had to reapply again. And it was really daunting to have another year of applying in front of me and the uncertainty of whether or not I'd get in on my third attempt. And in hindsight, for anyone in the call here that has experienced a rejection, I just want to let you know that that experience was one of the best ones I actually had, was not getting in the first time I had an interview, which if you told me at the time, I probably would have been very upset to hear. But it allowed me to, I think that last year is where I grew the most, and I really diversified my experiences and realized that the world will keep spinning whether or not I get into vet school. And when I was able to not make getting into vet school my whole life, and I was able to live life outside of that goal, is when I was able to implement some more balance, mature a little more, and just be a little bit more calm overall. And it took a lot of pressure off the interview process itself, because I had went through it, didn't get it before, and managed to make it in that same position. And I think that mentality really helped me get the acceptance. So if anyone had a similar experience or has a similar experience in the future, I just want you to keep that in mind and don't give up. Okay, how much does your GPA affect your application? So for this question, I would definitely double check the website, the OVC applications. But I think when I last checked, I think half of your mark, there's like a certain proportion that's divided with your Casper score and your GPA, and that combined ranks you and determines if you have a good enough ranking to get an interview. So I don't know the specific amount your GPA affects your application, but last time I checked it was a pretty significant amount. Luckily now, with the Casper test determining if you get an interview, it kind of allows you, if grades are maybe not as competitive based on the previous stats, really acing your Casper score can drag you higher up in the ranking for the interview. So just really work on improving your Casper score regardless. But if you're really like on the lower end of the competitive GPA range, then that's what I would recommend. And again, when looking at the stats and things like that and different forums online, just don't let it affect your mood too much. It would stress me out a lot when I read other people's experiences and grades and whether or not they got in. So just remember, you're your own applicant with your own experiences and, again, your own path. So try to minimize the comparison, even though it's really challenging. With the vet shortages in Ontario, do you think that OVC will be opening up more spots for undergrad applicants in the future? This is a great question. Reese, you have some hard-hitting ones. I don't know, to be honest. My understanding, I feel like a question like this was asked when I was trying to apply. This is a question I may have overheard, asked to whoever represented admissions at that respective meeting. And I think it's really dependent on how much funding they get from the government. So it might be pretty set in stone, and they really want to keep employment success for students like myself up, even though I think sometimes I wonder if they really increase the spots that there'd still be a vet shortage with the whole COVID puppy increase and things like that. So I don't know if they will increase the number of spots, and I don't know if it's really likely, just because I feel like it may have happened already if it was feasible. Again, we could always keep our fingers crossed. When I was in undergrad, this would have been super comforting. But yeah, unfortunately, I don't know the answer.